There it is. Welcome, everyone. It's Sunday. It's Super Bowl Sunday here in the United States, and that means American football, not what the rest of the world calls football, because we just call that soccer. Glad that's out of the way. My name is CJ Reynolds, and I'm thinking about a lot. I've been trying to think about stuff recently that I could bring to the beginning of the show to kind of like talk about like kind of what I've been feeling and thinking about. And one of the things we just got done talking about actually is like how the world is sort of run by its emotions, how all of us like how your class runs tomorrow is based on your emotional state. If you're in a good mood, you can teach a certain way. If you're not in a good mood, you will teach a completely different way that you will probably beat yourself. If you're anything like me, you will beat yourself up about later and apologize to everyone and get down on yourself. But so, one of the things I really try to keep in mind is what actually elevates my mood, what puts me in a good and strong emotional state. Because a lot of that stuff, the more and more that I read about, and this is probably a whole video, and I don't know, like maybe you're into this, maybe you're not, but I love this stuff. And I love this idea that, a lot of what's happening in our head is just science, right? So like a lot of what your mood is, your state is, your where you're at on a scale from 1 to 10 is really just science. So like, am I eating the right stuff? Lately, the answer is no. Am I exercising lately? Sadly, the answer is no lately. Do I play more video games than I should? Yes. Did I eat Edmund's donut at 1 a.m. yesterday? I did. You ate one too?
Don't tell us.
I feel like we maybe even cheersed over. I'm not really sure. I think we touched donuts.
No, we did not.
I think in my head we should have done that. I mean, should just own the moment. It is, but it's like, to the extent that I'm possible, look, the world's going to do what the world's going to do, but like, are there things we can put in place in order to put ourselves at the best emotional states so that we can do all that we can in the classroom? And look, like in the classroom it's about kids, right? Education is only ever about students, but it's about us too, right? It's about feeling like you're fulfilled, feeling like you're doing good work, feeling like, back to feelings. It is feeling like you are contributing something to the world. And I think one of the beautiful things about teaching is that we have that job, right? Which is what maybe makes it so maddening sometimes too, when you don't feel like you're succeeding, but we get to do that work that, like, when I talk to folks that have just been sitting in a cubicle for 30 years, and they're like, I'm really thinking about getting into education. I go, oh, that's a curious decision right now at this time. But when folks say like, yeah, I just don't feel like I can, like, there's no meaning to what I do. We get to live in meaning all the time. And I think it's important to just remember that. That's why sometimes this job is so difficult, because it means so much. There's so much that we could succeed in. And we also feel like, I don't know, I just think that that's a good thing to remember. So with that being said, my name is CJ Reynolds. I run this YouTube channel here called Real Rap with Reynolds. I don't rap. That is not a skill that I possess, but what we do here is have real, honest, open conversation about education. And it's not just me. When I say we, sometimes I draw my wife into it. But if you've not been here before, it is all in the comments, which is why people have been in the comments before we even went live today. They just show up because they want to be together, and they're trying to work together to be the teacher that they are called to be. And so that's what we're doing here today. So if you have a question, you can drop it in the chat. And look, nothing's off the table. We'll literally talk about, I don't think we've ever gotten a question that we haven't at least attempted to answer.
Some you can't answer. So
sometimes I can't, but that's the beauty of having hundreds of people in the chat, is that it's like,
no, nothing's off the table.
I don't know everything,
to always discuss everything,
but everybody else knows everything. So you just go, you know what? Laura Campion's in there. Go ask her that question.
Yeah, there's so many great teachers in our chat.
So,
all right, let's start off with a question.
Let's kick it.
Stephs was in there early. She was posting her question at 12:51.
Love it.
Okay, she's asking, well, the truth is finally out. My students think I'm too nice. That is probably why they misbehave for me so much. What can I do to get them back in check without being mean? It doesn't Oh, I forgot to put it up on the screen. That's the first part. And the second part is she says, it doesn't feel nice. And I've tried everything I can think of, even got the advice of vets with nothing new to add. I'm at a loss.
You're too nice.
Don't be afraid to be mean. There's a difference between being mean and I think like having boundaries and
go ahead.
lines.
Keep
I don't
going.
know. That's all I was gonna say. You
Field
take it
this
away.
question.
No, nope, take it away.
Steph Shook respects what you say.
That's true, and I love Steph, but that's about all I got. Let's see what's
all right. So I think that you're right. It's not being mean. It's doing what is needed in the moment. And I think sometimes we teach out of our own. Look, I'm not a therapist. I don't play one on the internet. But I think a lot of how we act is we're acting out of like maybe what we needed or what we think we should do, or we're acting out of our own past experiences, right? Like whether they were hurtful or whether they were wonderful. That being said, I think that there's room to pivot, but here's how you pivot. I think this is where you get the juice from. You get the juice from the idea that what we're doing is only for kids. And that I think sometimes when we're being too nice, too kind, too lenient, too mean, we're doing that with the idea this is what kids need, instead of really looking at the situation and seeing what do kids need. So for instance, I know that look, I don't ever like yelling. I hate it. It zaps my energy. It makes me feel like crap. It makes me feel like I can't control myself all the time. But Steph, I had a day last week. I'll just put this right out there. I had a day. My co-teacher has been out for several days. And the class just wouldn't calm down. Like I was trying to get started. I had like this thing we were doing. It's kind of fun. I was like, look, all we're doing today is this. It's like half a day. We're going to get into it. We're going to get this thing done first. And then we're going to do this fun thing afterwards for like, if maybe 5 minutes, which if you know in the teacher world is damn near 10,000 years. So I kept trying to focus us, to move kids, to remind kids of where to sit down. I was being very nice about it. I was doing my thing. I still had half the class that just wouldn't shut up. They just wouldn't open a book. They just wouldn't get started on what we were doing, even though I did the whole performance. Like the setup was there and I'm so excited to see you. Oh, there we go. It's going to be awesome. And then finally, I just got so pissed that I had to get firm. Then I still had no one listen to me. And I literally gave up. I said, I'm not doing this today. Here's what you're going to do. We're not going to do this thing that we were going to do. We're not going to do this quick activity that turns into a game, that turns into a film clip. I said, here's the questions in the books. Just do it yourself. Like, just figure it out. And I'll say this. One, I don't like that I did that because my kids deserve more than that. Two, I don't like that I did that because I felt like I lost control. And that's a whole nother issue for my therapist. But you laughing in there. So, but what I did see was that sometimes that firmness, I'm not saying yelling. I'm not saying screaming at kids. I'm not saying like, is the cup you gave me?
Yeah, sorry.
All right, got you.
I had it.
It's the ugliest cup we have, but I'll take it.
Cup. It's my favorite.
So what I saw though was that kids snapped into it and they got to work. They worked silently for the entire period and really did the work. Really, really did the work. I had one kid fall asleep and he has his own host of issues, but it was a reminder to me that not every class needs to be taught the same exact way. Not every student needs to be dealt with the same exact way. And so sometimes when we're thinking about how we're going to handle things, it's handling things in such a way where we know what students need. And our job as the educator is to show up and give kids what they need and not just what we want to give them. Now, granted, my strong suit is consistency, it is love, it is silliness, it is using sense of humor, it is in being innovative in the classroom. My strong suit is not being it's hard to be tough, but some kids need me to be tough. So I'll show up and be tough, right? It's like, if I'll make another sports metaphor, even though I don't play sports and I haven't since I was in fourth grade, but if my jump shot's really strong and that's my jam, doesn't matter. I still have to have a 3-point shot. I still have to be able to dunk. I still have to be able to pass and play defense when necessary. So I think Steph, figuring out what is that going to look like for you, and how are you going to do that? And to me, it's just being very clear on what I need right now, and then just saying, no, this is like, nope, you're going to stop talking. We're going to stop talking, or we're going to have to call home, or we're going to have to talk to someone else, or no, don't take late work. It's for your betterment. And then knowing the why behind every single decision that you're making, but being too nice. What kids are really telling you is that I'm not getting from you what I need. Like the class is this way and I need it to be this way. And look, there's 35 kids in the classroom, right? Like you can't make something that's going to work for every single person. This isn't tailor-made education. What we're doing is doing the best with what we've got, but how can we overall get closer to that mark? I think that's the move. It's never being perfect. It's getting closer to the best version of yourself, as close as you can, knowing that you'll never quite get there, but you keep moving towards it. That was a piece of advice for me at the end there. I think that I needed to hear that.
I think that's a good reminder for all of us. I think just your whole walk of life, it's like a thing that you have to constantly be reminding yourself of, because we have to be kind to ourselves. Okay. Our next question is coming from Catherine. She's asking, what is your strategy for work-life balance as a new teacher? I'm in my second year and I'm finding myself getting closer to burnout.
Catherine, first, this is my favorite. This is like one of my favorite conversations. I love the conversation around work-life balance. And what I'm learning in the last couple of years is that work-life balance doesn't happen. You don't figure it out. There's no it is literally designing work-life balance. It is literally like looking at your life and figuring out what you need, and then as best as you can, sticking to that. So, yesterday morning, we had conferences last week. Sorry, I have some random hair in my mouth. That's more information than anyone needed, but we're trying to be vulnerable here. So I had conferences all last week after school, and there were a couple of parents that I promised an email to on like Friday morning or Friday afternoon. I did not get that to them. So yesterday morning I woke up and I sent those emails. Now, look, my policy is I do not do work on Saturdays. I don't do Real Rap with Reynolds. I don't do school. I don't do anything that is like Saturdays is what I consider a Sabbath. It is a day off. It is a day spent sometimes running errands with my wife, sometimes eating Taco Bell in the parking lot of some random food chain.
Now everyone's gonna know why we
only had one.
We look without exercise and eating donuts and tacos.
We only had one chalupa. That was it. Then we came home and ate Edmonds in the middle of the night. So it is time with my wife. It is time with my kids. It is time with our new one-eyed cat. Like, it is just doing things that fill me up. So with that being said, yesterday I sent out those emails. I'm sitting at my desk. I got the lights on. I got music on. I'm like jamming. And I'm like, this feels so good. I could probably do this all day. I literally thought yesterday, I'm like, I could get so much work done if I just did it on a Saturday. And that would make me feel even better going into next week. But then I had to remember, like, the agreement I had with myself is that this doesn't work long term. Like, so what I'm going to do is get caught back in the rabbit hole of doing work on Saturdays, and I don't want to.
I just want to say, hold on. That's so funny that you had that thought this Saturday, because I thought, oh my gosh, we don't have anything on the schedule. And how I love Saturdays for that reason. We live and die by our calendars during the week. And so we are constantly checking our schedule and all those sort of things that keep us busy and that we are responsible for. But Saturday to me, and it took a while to get here for me, I just love, there's literally nothing on that Google calendar. Yeah. And I just love it so much.
No, it feels so good. And it's a rabbit trail, right? Yeah. So I think for me, Catherine, it's figuring out balance. To me, work-life balance to me is a balance of not how much am I working and how much am I taking off. It is what is taking energy and what is giving me energy. Mm-hmm. And it's having that conversation with yourself and figuring out what is taking energy from you and
like what's draining and what's giving.
So for me, it is one of those things. We just had this conversation this morning, is like, I want my mornings to be, so I have a morning routine, but I want it to be as automated as possible. I don't want to make decisions in the morning. I get up at the same time every single day. I almost never, that's not true. I've been slacking lately, but I typically don't use my snooze button. I just get up immediately. I come downstairs, the coffee water. So we use a French press. Coffee water is already in the kettle on the stove. The coffee is already ground, and is always in the French press, but I just put it in the French press. Then I like brush my teeth and do my hair. Then I pour my coffee. Then I sit down and I meditate and I listen to like the same thing when I meditate every day. And then I pray every day. That time shifts depending on how much time I feel like I need to meditate and pray. Sometimes I feel like I either hit a sweet spot and I go a little bit longer, or I feel like I need to put a little bit more in. Then I read or listen to something that is going to fill me up. Then I usually have like 10-minute conversation with my wife. So here's what I'm getting at is that like, it doesn't matter if you do things exactly the same as me. It is, I'm not making decisions in the morning. That is not taking energy from me. It is that morning routine is only giving me energy. On my drive to school, same thing. I drive the same exact way. My clothes are set out the night before. When I walk into my classroom, it's already set up from the day before. So that's not taking energy from me. I don't have to walk in and see stuff. I'm literally like thinking about who I'm going to be around. What am I going to do? When am I doing work? When am I getting things done? It is all systemated in my life so that I'm basically doing the same thing every day. But in that, you know, as Jocko Willink would say, discipline equals freedom. So in that structure, it is now I don't have to make decisions. I am alleviating, like I'm paring down the work that I'm actually doing so that I'm only doing things that are important. That like at this time I answer emails, at this time I plan my lessons, at this time I'm going to communicate with parents or go talk to a friend or something like that. It's all systemized. And what I'm trying to do is get the energy input to a place where it's so much stronger than the energy output. That I want to be operating on such a high level that I'm always have more energy than what I'm giving away.
But I want to say that you even take that into like your school day for like what's. So my concern is like in the question, and I'm gonna speculate here. It's like in my second, she's close to burnout. Is it just because the job is too much? Are you doing too much? Like, because we all know schools will give you more than you have capable.
If you're doing too much, the job is too much. You can work at the greatest school in the world. If you do too much, then you're going to get burnt, right?
Right.
So it's only ever working on you. So even my school, that's a dumpster fire right now, in my estimation. It requires me to pour even more into myself. And some days that works, and some days it doesn't. But I don't judge myself on that. What
I'm saying is you have to look at all those things and figure out which one it is. So it's not just systematizing. Systematizing greatly helps organize your time, just like writing everything out on the calendar and like all of that. It shows that you have a lot more time available and organizes your time. But if you're having burnout as a teacher you have to look at your environment. Is it your school? Is it not a good fit? Are you trying to do everything that the school is asking of you and you need to probably cut down because of your own mental health? There's a lot of variables to look at to see what's actually causing and getting the person closer to the burnout.
So for that, if Catherine is feeling very near to burnout, I would say one of my things is...
she said the job is becoming too much is what she said.
So I think the answer there, for me anyway, the answer is I would do a deep immersion into filling yourself up, right? And then, so it's almost like, how much can I cut from my life that is taking energy from me? What can I do to fill that up as much as possible? Like every single night, every single weekend, like what am I doing to fill that up? Let's do an immersion of that for however much time you think you need, whether that's a week or 2 weeks or a whole month. Like what if March was the month of Catherine? What if March was like, this is what you do? And like, this is like, you are the priority. And so I think that is part of it. But then in that, it is looking for, well, what does fill me up? So I figured out that like in the last year, we realized that food shopping on the weekends just sucks. It is a drain. It's never fun. There's too many people at the food store. Last time we didn't even do the order because we go to BJ's, BJ's Wholesale Market. I'm a part of the club. The line was literally to the back of the warehouse.
It's solidified. Oh yeah, this is why we don't.
This is why we order ahead of time, and they just bring it out to my car. This is why we do something like HelloFresh. I'm not affiliated with them. It's not a paid sponsorship, but if you're out there, let your boy know. We do HelloFresh, so we don't have to food shop for that and think about what meals we're going to have and things like that. Is it more money? Yes, but is it for us? It's money
that has given me.
Yes,
as the role and responsibility person in that area, like has outweighs the price astronomically for me. Like, so things like that. It's balancing those sort of things. Like, I don't go out. I don't put myself ever, but I've now committed to like making myself go connect with my friend once a week. I do it every single week. We put it on the calendar and I go every single week, and it's just for 2 hours, and it is the highlight of my week. But I put it on there.
Wait a minute. It's the highlight of your week?
Yeah. Sorry, babe. You're my everyday, all day.
Date night's not the highlight of your week?
Sorry. Well, they've been coinciding. Sorry. It's been coinciding. I've been doing like double date nights for myself. Sorry, babe. Date nights.
How could this happen? Anyway, but like, I think it's all that kind of stuff. And I have 1,000 examples of how I do that in my life, but I think that's where I would start.
I think it really makes a huge difference.
You're important, Catherine.
Yeah, treat yourself like it. All right, the next question is from Sophia. She's asking, what types of activities do you do with your students so they can have some input? I've been doing Google Classroom questions, but I would appreciate some other ways as well. Thank you.
That's a great idea. And I love that you're thinking about this. I think sometimes, look, Sophia, I don't know that kids are used to being asked how they think class should go or how they learn or what they want to do. And when you ask them that, it's just like, we should chill more. Like, that's what I get from a lot of kids are like, we should just chill. How about we play video games in class? I find that it really works well if I sit amongst students, not in the front of the class. I don't stand in front of them. I usually will sit on the side of the classroom, in the middle of the classroom, in one of the student desks. I used to do this and move them around in a circle, but that's a whole extra step that I don't think is really that necessary. And then it's having a conversation like, hey, look, I'm just curious. What has been great this year in general in school? And what has been really difficult or hasn't worked well or has been just kind of sucked? And then sitting in that awkward silence and waiting for kids to share stuff. And what it is a snowball. They'll be whether it's lunch sucks or something else sucks or whatever's going on, what you're doing is you're creating a space for kids to start sharing. And then that sharing turns into more and more and more and more things. And, in my experience, it has been the place that I get the most honest feedback, because it's not. Sometimes what we do is we make things feel sort of clinical or cold or like it's an input form. And instead, what comes out when you're just talking, when you're just sharing stories, when you're just concerned about something, and then you can ask a follow-up question like, oh, really? You don't like that? Well, how come? What is it about that bothers you? What could we do about that? What would you do if you were that teacher? What would you do if you had that class? What would you do if, if we could change school and it could be anything that you wanted and it would be exactly what you kind of needed or something that you were excited to go to? What would that look like? And it's, to me, it's just having those sort of seemingly informal conversations, but then you're either actively taking notes or you're just in your head taking notes and then writing things down afterwards. But I find that has been even more beneficial than anything else that I've done before. And look, I'll say this about that. I just had a conversation with the administrator the other day at my school where I said, we need to create spaces and places for teachers to just hang out and be together. That and teach and students too, because I had this whole pushback this year about me having fun in the classroom. And I said, sometimes 5 minutes of fun leads to a week of really good work with your students. Because if we think about it, have I really connected with my fellow staff members over the last 11 years at this particular school? Because we did really great icebreakers, but when we were doing professional development, or because we did a get to know you form, that helps, right? I'm not saying there's no value in that. Or is most of the value, most of the connection come from drinks or dinner on a Friday night, from Sundays having coffee together, from people getting together and watching football or doing something else together? I would argue that those informal times bring the most value. And I think we could do the same sort of, use that same idea going into our classrooms.
Our next question comes from Laura. Hi, Reynolds and the Not So Secret Wife. Hi. Hope you are well. If you are comfortable and if it's not too personal, can you speak on how you came to the decision to homeschool your own children? Oh, sure.
I'm going to say your version of this story is very long.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to silence your voice. Did you swoosh me away?
Yes, I did. Shush. I did swoosh you away.
Like our
I would say,
today.
I mean, the decision to homeschool came from just a long, arduous journey of seeing that our children were falling, or especially our son in particular, was falling through the cracks of the educational system. Tried to go through the route to get help and services, which got very hairy and all the way down into like a potential lawsuit, which I will just say, you don't have the money to sue a school district. They set it up in New Jersey in a very precarious way to bleed parents dry. Long story short, I mean, we just figured that if we needed to give Birdie what he needed, or Marley or children, we'll just do it ourselves. And so we've created the path to be able to try and do that as much as possible.
Yep. And now that is turning into hopefully private school for both of our kids, if not just our daughter, within the next year, which is part of the reason that, like, look, all this work that I do and all the stuff that I'm trying to grind and get out, part of that is so that I can pay for the life that my kids need. And not just the life that I want, although I'm fine with that too. Like, I think your wants are good, but it is like trying to, like, getting to a place where I know that, like, my abilities cap out at some point when it comes to my kid, like educating my kids. And I don't have the time or money to put into myself to be able to help them. So it's like, well, why don't I just find someone else? It's like when
but that's me, right? Like, you could do it. Like, if you stayed home and you could totally homeschool and create like this wonderful environment for our kids.
Yeah.
With it, sure, it would come with challenges with parent-child
because there's math involved. Yeah.
No, but we could figure it out and do it. You could, because that's just your natural ability and talent. Like, that's your skill. It is not mine.
Yeah.
And so for me to homeschool, I do it out of necessity for my children. It is not something that's natural for me or something that I'm like, woohoo, and I love to do. There's also just, I wear a lot of other hats around here. And so private school is definitely the goal, because I don't want to be a teacher forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why we started that, essentially. Like, it just didn't fit. And most of it was, I followed my kids. There was nothing, I don't want to talk bad about the school system. I followed my kids and who they were and what they need and their emotional needs. I read Marley was really suffering and hated school and cried every day to go in. Kids shouldn't do that. And I didn't want my kids to have to suffer like that. And so that's ultimately where the decision came to why we homeschooled, is we followed our children and their emotional needs.
Yeah. Good answer.
Oh, thanks. And then I didn't look for the next question because here it is. Good. It wasn't too far. Our next question comes from Rihanna. I am a teaching intern right now, step before student teaching. And my mentor teacher says all the right things about her teaching, but her actions in class are the opposite. Ooh, how do I broach this?
So I think, Rihanna, it's worth considering whether or not this is your assignment. I think in life, the things we want to really keep in mind are, like, there's a million problems in the world, right? Like, there are, like, if you really think about, like, the world globally, I just don't know that all of them are my assignment. So it is, I think that's part of it, right? Is this your job to do? If you do think that it is, I think that learning how to have difficult conversations with people is the most difficult thing. I think it's one of the most difficult things to do in the world, but I also think that it's one of the most powerful things. That any relationship that you have had that has stood the test of time has probably not just been because, like, you are just, like, two peas in a pod and you fit together so well, it is really because you've learned how to have difficult conversations, because you've been through stuff together. The reason I have said this a million times, but it's worth repeating, that I've been with my wife since 1995 is because we have learned to have really difficult conversations with one another. But that also comes with an understanding that what we're trying to do is speak the truth in love, right? So I'm not trying to speak the truth to just tear you down, to hurt your feelings, to show you who you are, or like, I'm gonna, I'm not trying to hurt anyone. Although sometimes the truth hurts, it is speaking the truth with knowing that my intentions come from a place of love, coming from a place that I want you to be honest with what you're doing and who you are, and where you need to grow. And look, sometimes that's a hard thing to do. You know what I mean? I know that certainly when I've had folks that are like technically over me, you can see by the way I even say that, how I feel about that sort of thing, like this some kind of hierarchy, but like folks that are like in charge, that aren't doing a very good job. I used to have a real hard time with that because I felt like you were the leader and I would like, who am I to say anything? I'm not an administrator. I'm not a director of whatever. I'm not in charge of this. I've never been a leader of damn near anything in my school. But it is realizing that my voice is still valid, that my thoughts are still important. And that if education's only about the kids, how am I going to learn to have difficult conversations so that the students are benefiting? And so that's where the love comes from, is that it's like, I am like, look, I don't know if anyone else has said this to you, but I'm going to. And look, to be honest with you, when you think about that, right, when you get anxious and you worry about how that's going to work out and if this is going to, what's going to happen, I think it's really important to consider what's the worst thing that could happen, right? What I tell students all the time, and I've had students even repeat this back to me when things are going on, and they like, I remember Romina came over one time. You're not even paying attention to me because I see you doing something. Romina came over one time, and Romina wrote the foreword to my book. And so she was a student of mine years and years ago. And she goes, Reynolds, stop freaking out. What's the worst thing that could happen? You're not going to catch on fire. And I've said that to people. I've told her that probably 100 times in her life, and then have her turn and say it back to me. And what I would say to you, Rihanna, is that what's the worst that's going to happen? You're not going to catch on fire. And even if you get in trouble, even if you got fired, like, it's like, did you want to work somewhere where you couldn't say the truth and love anyway? Like, that doesn't sound like a very open and honest and vulnerable place. And look, I'm not trying to say, like, I realize people have responsibilities. I realize that folks have bills and they're trying to get somewhere so they can pay for things, and you have people under your care, whatever. I get all of that. But look, I mean, no relationship is going to last if you can't speak to it honestly and openly. And then know that all things can be made well again. I think so. It's speak the truth and love always, even when your voice is trembling.
Even as a teaching intern?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
she said example, she says she believes in discussion-based learning, but yells at all the students not to talk with each other while working. So
the other way that could happen with that is not to just point out that something someone's doing is wrong. It's coming up with a better system, right? So it's like, discussion-based word. Questions. Hey, can we do discussion-based? I have an idea for discussion-based this week that I think will really allow students to share more of what they're thinking and feeling in class. Could we set up this sort of like Socratic seminar? Could we set up this sort of like listening activity or discussing activity? Could we gamify it in some way, shape, or form? Like, what could we do that is going to solve the problem? And then you're not just pointing out to the person that what they're doing is wrong. You're fixing the issue yourself. I think that could work sometimes too. And then if they keep doing that, it's like you hold the mirror up and say, I'm trying to do this. But what I think, and I think you mentioned it like this, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of this from you though, right? It's not saying like you're doing this, you're wrong, and pointing a finger. Curiosity. It's like, it's going into it with curiosity, because look, sometimes we don't know, right? Curiosity has saved my ass a lot of times, because it is really, it's this, when going into things with curiosity, people are not so immediately on the defense. They'll listen to you. They'll have a conversation with you. They'll clarify things with you, because I'm just curious as to how we think this is a discussion-based activity that we're doing here. But in discussions, I think it's but what I'm seeing is like we're yelling at a lot of people. We're raising our voices. We're shutting people down. And we're not like the kids are going to follow our example. We got to show what active listening looks like. We have to give someone a chance to share their whole thing before we cut them off. Like, I think there's value in having those conversations too. What you got, buddy?
Yes. Our next question
Texting Laura over there?
I am. Shush. Our next question comes from Chris. Hey, Reynolds, love the show. I am leaving teaching after this year for various reasons. I'm having trouble staying motivated, but I want to finish the year strong for my students. Any tips?
So,
Joy.
damn,
it's hard.
That's a hard question. Because I feel some of that sometimes. And I think what it comes down to is when I lose joy in a class or even in what I'm doing, right? When there's not like, I don't go into school every day and I feel like I'm not, although I shoot for 11 every single day, I'm not on 11 every single day. And when I get like that, what comes to me is, look, joy is contagious, first of all. So if I can get myself into a place of feeling joyful about damn near anything, it spreads to other things in my life. So that's when I go to like Five Below is like one of my favorite places to buy weird stuff, right? That I bring into school. I will go to the dollar section at Target or the dollar store and like look for weird crap that I'm going to bring into school. So if you saw it recently, I've been putting on my Instagram account, like I stand in the hallway with signs a lot. And the dollar store has this great poster board that has like gold glitter border on it. And I just write messages and it costs me $1, right? So I just like, I don't care how many of these I have to have, or if I only get to use them one time. I write messages that I then stand in the hallway and it looks like I'm on a protest. I have like this meter stick with this poster board at the top of it. And then I'm standing out there holding this thing up and like doing something with that. I'm using tiny hands to shake hands. I am celebrating someone's half birthday because their birthday falls in the summer and they probably never had a birthday party in school because that's what happens when you have a summer birthday. It is doing stuff for other teachers. What I'm trying to do is to figure out some small thing that I can do that is going to bring joy to my day, knowing that multiplies, right? That when I do that, it comes back to me and I feel better. I feel lighter. I feel like I'm having more fun. I think the other thing is when we look at certain classes and we feel a certain type of way about them, like maybe they're a real struggle, maybe this class is really difficult, that what we're often doing is looking at the handful of students that make it difficult. What if you created a lesson, or you made it a point today, right, that I'm going to teach to this kid or these kids over here, right? The kids that are always quiet, the kids that are struggling, the kids that don't get caught up in all the madness. It's what if I make something special for you today? So last week in the class that I gave up on, I ended up pulling the kids aside that like I wasn't mad at, because I kind of got mad at the whole class. And even though I was only speaking to the kids I was aggravated with, but I had to but no one else knows that. So I just went around and reminded them that they always do a good job. I always appreciate you. And I know I got frustrated today and I'm sorry that I did that. I wish I was better than that, but I am what I am. But I want you to know that I always notice the good work that you're doing. I always notice that you show up and that you're on time and that you're putting your whole self into this. I notice that you help other people. I notice things and I want you to know that. And then I gave them all cereal. I had a giant box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch in the back of my room, and I sent someone down to the lunchroom to get me some milks, and they all ate cereal. And that's how I do it sometimes. It's like, what can I do to make this a wonderful day for these students? And I think sometimes it's shifting our focus, because sometimes we focus on, I've talked about this before, and I talked about this in my book, that so I won't go into it really in depth here, but if there's 3 types of kids, it's the kid that loves to learn and loves to come to school that everyone loves. It's the kid that's always a problem and is driving you nuts and makes your hair turn from black to gray every year. And then the middle kid number 2, is the kid that doesn't get paid attention to, because they sit up, they sit right, they pay attention, and then they fail at the end of the year and you had no idea. They're the kid that is hurting themselves and nobody knows about it. They're the kid that is low-key really struggling with anxiety or depression, or feeling a sense of that they don't matter. So it's like, what if you just went into school tomorrow, Chris, and you made those kids know that they matter. You made kids that felt invisible feel visible, and then that becomes contagious. And then that is something I think you can move forward through the rest of your year with. What you got there, bud?
All right, our next question. Wait, did we just have?
That was Chris.
Oh, yeah, I know. Sorry. Our next question comes from Barry or Mel. Barry Mel. I don't know which one's first. How do you defend independent reading to those who just don't understand how it works?
So I'm not sure if you're talking about teachers or students here, but I would say this. To me, the way I break down independent reading is that, look, students don't like to read. And many studies recently show that students have a 2-second attention span, right? So every 2 seconds, it's like, what's going on? And if we look at a lot of I'm not going to be the old guy that like sits here and like blames social media, but like we look at all the options kids have. We look at how much faster technology has gotten. We look at things like Vine or TikTok or stories on social platforms. It is like flipping, sliding, scrolling, whatever. Like you don't have to put a whole lot of time and energy into a thing. So what do we do with that? One, getting kids to read is the most important thing we could ever do for young people, that they could literally throw their lives away. And as long as you can read, you can find some success in something that you're doing in your life. So it is creating spaces for kids to sit down with the only intention is that we are reading. It is also reading together. How do we get kids to read more? We create a safe space that is quiet. I play music, even though I'm not allowed to in my room anymore. I play music on the back end. So like last week, we started playing records, and I was just playing Sam Cooke records in my classroom. Most of the time I play stuff without. I don't ever play anything that anyone knows. And I try not to play stuff with music with lyrics as much as possible, because it's distracting. But it is just creating the space. I then will order kids any book that they want. Literally, I've never been asked for a book that I've been like, unless it's like a really, really low level book or it's a really expensive manga where they're like, oh, it's only $50. Reynolds, I'm like, bro, what kind of budget you think we're living on? Like, we don't live on that dream. Or we don't live on, we're dreaming on a budget here. So it is, I think, helping students also to realize that like reading isn't just for assignments. Reading is like, it's literally like having a superpower. You're getting to learn from the mistakes and successes of other people, whether that's fictional or non-fictional. You're getting to learn about the world. You're increasing your base knowledge. One of the things that we find with our students that helps them or like cause them to struggle so much in standardized testing is that they don't have the base knowledge necessary to be able to know what the hell this question is even asking, because I don't even know what a coral reef is or what a manatee is or where the Empire State Building is or what a great, like there's base knowledge that students don't know that is increased. Your vocabulary is increased just by reading more. And so I think reading also is really great thing because it's one of the only activities that you can do that you can only be single-minded, right? It quiets the monkey mind, right? So like in meditation circles, the monkey mind is like, it's that ADHD mind. It is thinking about 1,000 different things and being distracted by a gazillion things and trying to think of all the stuff that's going on in the day and all the things that you have to do and all the things you have to do tomorrow. And you're freaking out. If you read, you can literally only read. And if you're not paying attention to your reading, you don't remember it. So I think it's a really good way to get kids to settle down, to focus in, and to rid themselves of that monkey mind. And I think there's a gazillion other benefits of it. But look, when I think about like some of the heroes I've had in my life, and I look at what made them into who they were, it's everybody that reads, right? Like, Malcolm X was in prison. He talked about the fact that like, that's how he grew out of who he had become. That's how he went from Detroit Red to being Malcolm X was reading, was filling himself up, was educating himself. And I think that there's just so much value in that. We don't have to even overcomplicate it. Although there's a ton more of research behind that proves it. But it's like, yeah, why wouldn't we just want to create spaces and places for kids to read? And I get it that not all schools want to do that. I've had trouble with that this year, where I've had, for the first time in my life, had books policed and had things told to me that, like, I'm not sure we should get that book, or we're not going to promote this sort of material. And it's like, who cares? Like, I'm not talking about, like, we're not buying porn for kids. We're buying something that's relatable. We're buying something that kids can see themselves in. We are taking kids who don't think they have a voice and putting a book in front of them of someone they can identify with that has a voice, and letting them know, like, you matter. Your story is important. It's all that kind of stuff. I just think it is the most important thing that I do. One of the most important things I do in class all week is create time for independent reading.
I agree. It's like my must for the day for kids. That even at home, it's like, nope, we have to read.
Yep.
Vanished into thin air is asking, I'm about to lose a couple of my department members, and I only have a couple of months with them before the decision is made. What areas do you think would make the greatest difference?
I'm not
sure what they're asking.
I'm not sure I fully understand what you're at. So losing a couple of department members. So we're trying to make a difference. If you could flesh that out a little bit for me. I know that space is limited on there because they only let you say so many words and stuff like that. But I'm curious as to what is being asked there. Like,
a little bit more info.
Yeah, like, are you trying to make a difference with your staff? Are you trying to make a difference in the classroom with the staff? Are you trying to get something done with them before they leave? Like, if you can flesh it out a little bit, let's make sure that we go back to that question again if they say something. Take your time. Did I throw you off? Keep drinking out of this ugly mug.
Yeah, no, it's what's throwing me off is I keep seeing the same question. Someone must have put in multiple times.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. All right, our next question. Thank you both so much for everything. How do I kindly help my student teacher grow when they consistently offer me advice? I'm not shy of criticism, but it has become excessive. Let me find.
This is the opposite of the question.
Yeah, excessive talk down to me, cut me off when I'm talking, and want to teach by talking at students. I teach middle school history.
So it's literally the opposite, right? It's like, what if they teach together? What if they're both on here?
Right? What if they're asking that about each other?
Sean Z, I would say one of the things that has been the most interesting to me in the time that I've taught is that when I came in, I had an inkling when I started teaching that I knew stuff that no one else knew, that all teachers were kind of washed up, didn't have the juice anymore. They were teaching these old stale ways and using textbooks. Who would ever use a textbook? That they weren't creating experiences, and that my classroom was going to be like literally on fire every single day. It was going to be awesome. It was going to be glitter shooting out of the door, and it was going to be amazing. And I discounted a lot of the things that I saw in the school that I was in. And what I've learned since then is that, look, there's no one way to do what we're doing. That there is so much value that I could have learned from those teachers. And in retrospect, I look at some of those educators now and I think that was such a missed opportunity. You were an incredible educator, but just because you didn't do things like me, I saw that as bad and not as like just different. And so when I'm thinking about your student teacher, it's like I feel like there was a bit of that in me where I just thought like, no, we're gonna do something wildly different, crazy. It's gonna be awesome every day. Wow, it's gonna be wild. And it's like, no, there's a lot of different types of bands out there. Doesn't mean that any one just makes the best music. They make there's a lot of good music that a lot of different people make, but like Bob Dylan isn't going to be on stage like going full David Lee Roth on you or something like that, right? And that's okay. So I think that's part of the conversation I would have with them. And then it's about coming up with norms. of like, look, when I'm speaking to someone, I can't be cut off, right? Because this is why. This is what I'm trying to do. When I'm teaching something, let's like, if you have a note, if you have an issue, if you want to change something, let's follow up after class. And I would even create this space. Doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong necessarily. It just means that you're creating space for them to voice their opinion and share their differences. Doing that in the middle of class is just a pain in the ass. It's not showing consistency. It's you already created the map on where we're going and how we're going to get there for the day. So if you want to share something, great, but let's do it at the appropriate time. It's like, I just had this happen the other day where like someone that worked at my school came into my class when I was in the middle of like having a really heavy conversation with a student and just like wanted my attention. And I'm like, you walk in, you see the vibe, you feel what's going on here. I know it. Like, I don't look like I'm over here playing around. And it's like, Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Reynolds. And I just turned to them and said, no, now is not the time unless it is an utter emergency. Wait, and I'll come find you when I'm finished. But I'm in the middle of something, and this is important. What is happening with the student right now? And then they did. Like, I just like what you have to say might be really important, but now is not the moment to do it. And so I think it's setting up norms for that sort of thing. And look, are they going to last long term because this person's only going to be there for a certain amount of time and then they'll leave? Maybe not. But I think, part of being a really happy, content person is knowing how to draw the line, is knowing how to hold boundaries, is knowing how to tell people, look, everything you're saying is important, but it's not always important when you want to say it, right? Like it needs to have a time and place to do that. So what's that noise? Oh, it's kids. I thought it sounded like, I don't know. So I think it's learning how to have those kind of difficult conversations, but start small and say like, hey, listen, this happened in class last week. Hey, just want to catch up with you. This happened in class last week. It's really difficult for me to focus in when you cut me off or when you do this or when this happens in class. And I'm wondering what we could do differently because I want you to share your voice. I want you to share your opinion. I think it's important, but like in the middle of class is difficult for me to sort of process that when I'm already like in the middle of what we're doing. And sometimes I'll tell you this is the last thing I'll say about this. I think a lot of people that do things that we would see as annoying or counterproductive or problematic, I don't think folks know they're doing that thing all the time when they're doing it. And it's easy for us to sort of say like, of course they know. They know exactly what they're doing. Sometimes they do. Sometimes maybe they are just a disastrous pain in the ass, right? What's up, buddy? But other times it is like holding a mirror up to folks because they might not realize what they were doing wrong.
All right, our next question comes from Linda.
All right.
75% of my students turn their work in late.
Yes.
Which is driving me insane.
Oh, yes.
Any advice for drawing boundaries halfway through the school year? And how do you remind students about deadlines?
All right. This is a great question. So here's what we do. One, you go into class tomorrow. Listen, everyone, I got to talk to you about something. This will take me about 60 to 90 seconds. I'm not going to take up the whole time because my son tells me that I talk too much anyway. And so I'm going to keep it short. Here's where we're at. Currently, 75% of you turn in work late. Here's why that's a problem. When I don't pay my electric bill and I turn it in late, I've had on multiple occasions, this is a real life story. I've had someone come to my house with these giant gloves and they turn off my electric. Then I have to drive all the way to the electric people and hopefully they are still open and hopefully they will turn my power on that day. Otherwise, I'm without power for the entire night. If I give my wife roses this Tuesday, I've already missed Valentine's Day. No one wants your half price day after roses, right? They want them on time, on the day that it is. If I say happy birthday 2 days after you see what I'm saying here? Like there's value in being on time. And some of that value is, y'all are driving me crazy and I can't get all this stuff done because I'm grading things that were due yesterday. So here's the gig. Going forward, we will no longer accept late work. And you can have your own version of this. If you want to have a day or a half a day or whatever it is, there no longer late work unless you have an extreme emergency or a really, really good excuse. And I mean Like you got kidnapped by clowns and they try to take you to the Russian circus. Like that's all right, bro, I got you. Like, you know, clowns can be sinister sometimes. But other than that, we will no longer accept late work. I would then communicate that with home. I'd email every single parent. And then the thing that I think most kids don't do work is because, one, they know that you're going to let them turn in late anyway. But two, they just forget. So I remind them ad nauseum. And then now I stand in the hallway with these signs I've been making. And on Friday, it was, you have a vocab test today. First class comes in. They go, wait, it's just this week's words, right? No, bro, it's last week's words and this week's words. So now I make an addendum to the sign. I make this giant pink spot on there that says 10 words because I only do vocab 5 words for the first week. It goes up to 10, 20 instead of giving them all at the same time. So it's 10 words. So now when kids still come to class and they go, yo, what are we doing today? Yo, what? We have a vocab test, bro. You walked by me 16 times today. I'm the only one in the hallway with a giant sign, right? Like, I don't know what else I could do. Light it on fire? But it is, I find that doing those things has gotten me a better ROI on any work, on any assignments that we're supposed to do. It is a constant reminder of what we're doing. That can be done with a whiteboard. You can have like a portable whiteboard and just stand out there, either hold your hands in the air or just hold it in front of you. You could I used to work with a guy that used to put notices on his door. Bring your book to class, right? And your job was when you were walking by, you saw the paper on the door. It said it very clear what that was going to be. So it's, I think it's finding out of the box ways to remember. And then I think incentivizing things, right? So like I used to work with a guy that had this club called the Lack of Procrastination Club. And so if you handed in work early, it was incentivized and you got extra credit on it. But what that really is also doing is reminding everyone else like, oh crap, yeah, that study guide's due, that assignment is due, that project is due. And people are already handing them in. So can I still hand it in? Yep, because these are early. You didn't hand in, the regular one is due tomorrow at noon or whatever that is. And I think that works well too.
All right, our next question is, I have to do a lesson on the types of energy for my student teaching for 4th grade, but I can't figure out a creative way to do this lesson and help them understand the lesson more. Oh, yeah, that's a question.
So I could probably come up with something for this. I'm going to say that there are 100%, we have science teachers in here, and especially science teachers that teach 4th grade or know someone that's awesome.
Hi, Becky
4th
is
grade.
in our group.
So
let's just tag Becky.
I would,
if you're not in the Facebook group, you should be. It's just Real Rap with Reynolds Teacher Talk Facebook group.
So let's do this. Can you take that question now?
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I would do. This is a little bit more of a convoluted way to do this, though. Copy and paste this question. Go and become a part of our Facebook group, Real Rap with Reynolds Teacher Talk. In that, if you could tag me in it, I will then tag. So you might just get answers enough there. You might even get answers enough here in the comment section. If that's not the case, post in the group, tag me, and we will tag Becky. And Becky is one of the greatest. She is
She's awesome.
She is so incredible. That like I wish I could literally sit in her class now, like as a grown man, and watch her teach 6th grade or 5th grade science or whatever she does. So I think that's the best way to kind of help out. But I could come up with an answer, but it's like it's probably going to take me a minute, and I don't teach science. But I am good at sprinkling magic on things. So I think that's the best answer, unless someone in here just knows already and they're like, "Yo, I got you. Like this is what you do."
I just want to laugh that a few people are talking about your coffee cup and say that it's huge, which I'm laughing because I'm using this one and I feel like it's gigantic.
When we have coffee cups that are like the regular coffee cups we have.
All dirty, okay.
But when they're either in the dishwasher or they're not, we end up using either this, which is damn near a thermos.
I love
right?
That. It's my favorite mug.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's my least favorite mug. Or we have this one from the office, which is it's a huge coffee cup. You can't really tell, but I mean, damn, it's big, man.
I hope there's only like that much coffee in it because it's so large.
That's why we're like this afterwards. We're like, oh, all right, let's go take a walk. We should take a walk. It's snowing out. It's beautiful.
I don't want to walk in the snow.
It looks beautiful outside. You got one more?
I'm trying to find one more. I'm sorry.
And then I'm going to go do my call with my man, Dave Dunsavage, after this, who's in the Facebook group also, who is, I think, assistant principal of all time.
Okay, let's go with Sean.
Cool.
Do you believe that character development has a place in the school system, or is it too much trouble doing it while still meeting curriculum standards?
This is a
good one, Sean. It's a good one to end on.
Let's write that one. I think it absolutely has a place, and here's why. Look, I'll say this. At some point, there's only so much teachers can do. There's only so many things that we can be responsible for. I remember, do you remember that commercial that came out?
Yes.
You already know what I'm going to say, right? You already know what I'm going to say.
Many conversations on this one.
There's this commercial that came out. I think it was GE or some company that makes appliances. And there was a woman in the commercial that says, like, my students were coming to school and they had dirty clothes and I just wanted to help them because it was affecting their learning and, like, what could we do? So GE donated a washer and dryer to our school. And now I wash my students' clothes all the time. And I just remember watching this and I was like, oh my goodness. If they start telling me I got to wash clothes for kids, you damn near lost your mind. Now, look, this is from a guy that I've bought kids clothes. I've taken kids wet pants that they got got soaking wet in the rain on the way to school or something like that. And giving them, like, go change into this. Like, I've, extra sweatpants in my room. Just go put these on for now. I'm going to run yours down. I'll put them in the dryer. I've ironed things for kids. I've brought them home and had them sewn for kids. I've been there. I've done that. But when we create a norm of, like, now, all right, so you're going to teach 5 classes a day. You have an after school program. You're going to have lunch duty and you're in charge of buses at the release. And we're going to need you to wash these 6 kids' clothes bro, what? Come again? There's no chance that that's happening. But because there's not enough time in the day to do all the things. That being said, I think that character building is one of those things that is, like, so easily integrated into what we're doing and is so utterly important that if I can have kids that graduate from high school with poor grades but great character, they're going to be able to make that up. If you graduate with great grades and poor character, then we're all doomed. And so I think that it's really finding ways to fit that into what you're doing. I think that one of the best ways to do that is to just build relationships with students. It is being around kids as much as possible without burning yourself out and having conversations with kids, and then not being afraid to hold a mirror up to some of their behaviors and some of their routines and rhythms that are a part of their lives. It is constantly letting kids see the value in themselves, constantly pushing back on kids, constantly holding kids accountable for things. And in doing that, we are teaching and building something or giving kids the option, right? Like, because you can't build character within someone else, but you can create opportunities for kids to build character within themselves. So it's like,
that's
getting
so important,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah. You can't force it on someone. They can take the program, but it's like you could go to the gym, but if you don't lift the weights.
Teachers are teachers. They're not parents, right? And there is a difference. Although that you bring some of that parenting-esque into the classroom, it's ultimately like you're not being their parent. You're giving them opportunities to build that in themselves. Yeah. That's what I like that you said.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
And there's a million ways to do that. I think that we can do that by bringing guests into our classroom. So one of the things we're doing for Black History Month is we are having, initially I thought it was men and women, or it was just men, but because we're all boys school, but it is men and women, people of color that are coming into our school that have been successful in some respect in their lives. They build a business. They are a singer-songwriter. They are an educator. They, whatever it is that they're doing, they've been on some metric, they have found success in what they are doing. And so the idea is to bring these folks in to talk to our students and to share a bit of their story so our students can see what it's kind of this, like, see it before you can be it kind of a thing. Because you have to believe it. You have to believe it's actually possible before you're actually going to follow through and do it. If you don't believe that's possible, no one's doing a push-up for the rest of their lives if they don't think that it actually really equals muscles. So it's creating those moments. It's buying kids books. It's showing kids movies and having conversations about it. It is integrating it into our lessons. But it's a constant and never-ending lesson. I don't know that you ever necessarily arrive, although I will say this, that it's one of those things that is like you're planting a seed. So you don't teach a lesson about any aspect of character development, and then tomorrow you see it. Like, damn, oh man, that worked. Kids know how to do it now. They're like being kind and respectful. They're working hard. They're digging deep. They're being mindful of their community and helping others. And like, that doesn't happen. But I cannot tell you the amount of time that like I've seen a kid 10 years later, 15 years later, and you're like, they've shifted, they got it somewhere along the line. So sometimes that's me planting the seed and others have watered it for years. Other times somebody else planted that seed. And all my job is to water that seed, to nurture that seed, to make sure I'm giving it in my time that I have with you as much sunlight, care, good soil, and water, so that we can, you go to the next person and they're going to water that seed. And over time, this is why it's so important that teaching becomes a community activity, because we're doing this together over the long haul. Teaching is a long haul activity. It is not about what kids are learning or growing or becoming this year in your class. That is important, but it is, you are a block into the wall that is becoming their life. And that was a weird metaphor to use, but it's still what you're doing. So yeah, I think it's crucial. But some of the ways we do it are I buy books for kids all the time. I buy them with my own money. I don't advocate that kind of thing. I think your school should be paying for it, or get your donors choose or something. I'm just impatient. So when a kid's like, Reynolds, I want to get this book, and I'm like, done. Or just literally ordered it while we're sitting here talking. It'll be here tomorrow. It is creating opportunities and experiences for students and realizing that you're not the be all end all, but who can I bring in that's going to speak to this? I think that's part of how we do that. So we good?
Yep, we're good.
Cool. Gang, I appreciate you so much. This is incredible. And I'm
going to interject. If you didn't already, hit the like button for us. That helps push this video to other teachers in the algorithm. It's not for us. I don't care if we get likes and all of that, but it helps push it in the algorithm.
Yeah, when you like and subscribe to stuff, it pushes us in what is known as the algorithm, so that more educators are going to see this. Because what we're trying to do here, is really, like, especially in the last couple of years, teaching is the hardest that it's ever been, I think. It is trying to create spaces and places that help teachers to be the teachers they're called to be. The end. So the more that we can get the word out, the more that we can let people know we exist. That's what we want to do, because not everyone's going to get down with what we're doing here. But as Seth Godin says, people like us do things like this. And when I literally was thinking about a bunch of you today as I was praying, any names that popped into my head that I've seen on here repeatedly, and thinking like, my God, like, what a blessing they are to their school. How incredible it is that all of these teachers that are like this, meaning people that are like trying to go above and beyond and really, really be who they're called to be, like, they exist. And that is so friggin' exciting. So yes, I hope that you have a great week. I hope that you have a great Super Bowl Sunday here in the US, and that tomorrow you find that kid that thinks that they're invisible and you let them know that they are not. And we'll see you here next week, 1 p.m. Peace.